Ladies and gentlemen, it's the CBSI BOLO Show! Now sit back and relax as Brian and Jack recap first appearances, reader buzz, and hottest variants in comic books releasing each and every week. Coming to you from an unidentified command center, here's your host, Brian Wood!
What's going on, guys? It is Thursday night, and it is the BOLO Show. As always, Thursday nights live, 9 p.m. Eastern. Welcome everyone coming into the live chat. We got a great show for you tonight. As always, I have my co-host with me, Jack DeMeo, a.k.a. Mr. Bolo. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, everybody? Simpleman's Comics family, YouTube comic community, CBSI Nation. As Brian said, I am Jack DeMeo, a.k.a. Mr. Bolo, and this, of course, is your weekly CBSI BOLO Show. And we're going to talk a little new comic book day, see what's rising, what kind of didn't hit the mark, talk first appearances, and definitely excited to get in. This is my favorite part of the week.
Right, so you might have noticed a little bit different with the intro tonight, and we have good reason for that. We have a special theme for tonight's show. So earlier this week, we got probably one of the best compliments I've seen in a while, and there was a post that said that people that read the BOLO list are the same people that wore Mike Allstott jerseys. I think that was one of the best compliments. Mike Allstott, fantastic football player, trucked people over. If you guys watch football and you know who Mike Allstott was, like, kudos to you, everyone that reads the BOLO list, and all the Mike Allstott fans out there. So tonight's special theme is going to be a Mike Allstott theme. So any new subscribers we get during this live stream, any super chats we get during this live stream are going to have special Mike Allstott jerseys that are going to show up on the screen because we are proud of that compliment. So with that being said, we want to remind everyone that not only is this a video show, but we also have an audio version for this podcast only, which is available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Just search for the CBSI Comic Book BOLO podcast. And our show is sponsored by Nick Dwortman from SlabbedHeroes.com. Fantastic, modern, guarantee 9/8. I'm talking about this guy. Ships bulletproof, definitely for real. And if you guys want good product at a great price with great customer service, definitely check out Nick at SlabbedHeroes.com. So, pretty busy week, right, Jack?
Definitely. This has been definitely a busy week. Everything we're balancing outside of the channel, within the channel. It's been a crazy one.
Right, yes. So we're getting, I guess we have some audio lag. That, I believe, has to do with the YouTube side, because I checked on it last week as well. But we'll definitely try to get that fixed going forward. And we have a couple giveaways to announce the winners for them right at the beginning of the show, correct?
Yeah, we do. We got two to announce this week. One, of course, the Slabbed Hero giveaway that you mentioned, and we've also got a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers giveaway from our Arun Singh interview, the Indie Spotlight Series show, one of our newest shows premiering on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel presented by CBSI. And we are going to give away a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 9 to one lucky commenter. I think I might have seen it flash on the screen. Did it flash there, Brian?
Yeah, so the winner is William Wise with this comment on the screen there. So William Wise, if you're watching, go ahead and email your address to simplemanscomics@gmail.com. I will actually get your address over to Jack. He's the one that has the comic, and he will be the one shipping it out. So we got more people rolling into the chat. Andy Tomlin's in the chat. We got Paul. We got Rantor Tim. We got Andy King as always. So welcome to the show tonight, guys. We're trying to get the audio lag kind of fixed here, but we are rolling nonetheless, and appreciate everyone that's joining us tonight. Matt Dungy, Roger Heller, welcome and thank you for joining us. We also have one more giveaway winner to announce tonight, and that is for the Excellence number 1 one-stop shop variant, correct?
Correct.
So this one, to win this one, you had to comment on last week's BOLO Show video of what your favorite image title was. And we are going to announce the winner to that right now. And that is Joshua Vincent. So congratulations to Joshua Vincent. you're watching this as well, email your shipping address to simplemanscomics@gmail.com, which is on the screen right now, and we will get that address over to Ben C., the owner of CBSI. He has that book, and he will get it out in the mail to you. And with that being said, it's giveaway bonanza. So we announced the winners for that. We actually have another comic we're going to give away in the live chat tonight, and that is from Black Cape Comics, and he sent us a Stranger Things exclusive variant for the store signed by the artist. So we will get to that later on. It's going to be a trivia question. That's the easiest way to do it, and we will be giving that out later in the show tonight. And I feel like I am just babbling, but
we had a lot of business to attend to in the early part of the show tonight.
So now that we've done the giveaways, announced congratulations again to the winner, and clearing up everything off of it, we are going to go into the BOLO Rewind. So this is the part where we recap part of last week's BOLO list, and we're going to kick things off with The Road of Bones. So this was from IDW, correct?
Right. Definitely a book that is trending upwards in the market. I like that Mike Allstott jersey.
We have our first Allstott jersey for tonight. So thank you to Andy Tomlin for the super chat and an Allstott MVP.
And that's actually really good timing from Andy Tomlin from the Spotlight series, who I was going to bring up. He mentioned this book as part of one of our new shows, the Hot and Cold show, right here on Simpleman's Comics, where we put together a spec super team from CBSI and a few from outside of CBSI that we're bringing in. And everybody picks a hot pick. Everyone picks a cold pick. We highlight 8 hot picks, 4 cold picks, different trends in the market. Andy talked about IDW creator-owned properties being hot. They're trending well. And this is just the latest example of that. Another book that just instantly has sold out and is starting to move up on the secondary market. And there's definitely some speculator demand for this book.
Right. And then also during the rewind for last week, we had Faithless number 2 and Faithless number 1 second print, both erotica covers. Those are worth mentioning because those saw some traction as well, correct?
Right. I think the number 2, I think, is doing slightly better as of right now, hitting about $10. But both of them are trending a bit over cover. They're drying up at cover. If you see them at your LCS for cover, be on the lookout because they're definitely trending upward. I think these are slower burns, all these erotica variants, but I definitely think that they are going to be the ones to grab if you're speculating on the Faithless series.
Right. And then the last in the recap for last week, which is still going strong, and that is the 1 in 25 New Agents of Atlas number 2 variant, correct?
Right. There's no slowing down with this New Agents of Atlas stuff. I'm seeing, people on our Facebook group trying to make comparisons with number 2. Is it Immortal Hulk number 2? And of course it's not, because it's a whole different scenario that made this popular. But we've seen Associated Press picked it up, and we saw within our Facebook group people posting newspaper articles with the story about New Agents of Atlas and this diverse group of superheroes. So I don't think there's any slowing down New Agents of Atlas at this point. I think it's a train that's left the station, and Marvel seems to be all aboard.
Right. So with that brings us to the end of our BOLO Rewind from last week. So as always, at the beginning of each show, before we get into the current BOLO list, we'd like to take a look back at the week before. And coming up now, we will bring up this week's BOLO list. And Jack, before we get into it, do you want to kind of go over again what the BOLO list is for new listeners and new people that are watching?
Definitely. I definitely think it's important. We highlight this from time to time, but the BOLO list is not an arbitrary list that I put together or Brian puts together, CBSI puts together, or anybody involved with Simpleman's Comics. It is something that I put together based upon what you guys are talking about on social media. So we've used the term spec cliff notes or a comic book cliff notes. Honestly, I think a better term for it is a scouting report, because it should not be the only tool you use when game planning. For New Comic Book Day, there should be no tool that you know is the only tool you use, but it is a great tool to use because it gives you an idea of what other people are talking about, other people are planning on buying, and it allows you to kind of see where the market is trending, especially when it comes to, say, lower print items or items that didn't receive initial buzz pre-FOC. So it is a tool to be used when helping make those New Comic Book Day decisions, and yeah, that's why we call ourselves the guardians of the BOLO list, because it isn't something that we're creating out of nothing. It's something that we're compiling through everything that we're seeing. We feel like seeing all of this content and this information gives us a leg up as speculators, and we want to pass that leg up to our community.
Right. So again, I'll bring up the BOLO list there, which I killed the graphic for on accident. But as always, the BOLO list has confirmed first appearances for the week, reader buzz for the week, variant buzz, and then we always have a BOLO long-term play. And let's bring up the graphic, but before we get into the first appearances for the week, I will fix this. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, technical difficulties. My CPU is humming, but I see people coming into the chat. Jack, you want to tell us who's all coming into the chat right now?
Yeah, I gotcha. See, we got Maximus. I know he said he's got to get back to work, but we appreciate you. And again, if you can't check out the live show, no worries. We got the replay coming up. Again, audio version as well. We got Cantankerous. I like that name. Luis Ramirez. Discovery Bay Comics. What's going on, JB? Appreciate you. If you guys aren't subscribed to Discovery Bay Comics, it's definitely a YouTube channel I suggest you take a look at. I call it the TV guide for YouTube comic community, because he's letting you know what and when and where everything is going on, completely unselfish. He lets everyone know when we're on. So definitely give him a subscribe, check him out. No matter what channels you're a fan of, you're going to like that, because you're going to pick up new things. And again, as a speculator, get as many tools as possible. See what others are talking about. You really can't get enough value from that. I also saw in the chat, you guys were talking Wailing Blade. That was a book I don't think is on the list, but was definitely a book that there was some late buzz for. I picked it on the Wednesday Warriors. It's a book I actually have some hopes for. It's always tough when you start dealing with that level of small press where they haven't had a whole lot of big hits. Talking about Comics Tribe, of course. But the first time I really saw the book was, I don't know if you guys saw the Larry's Comics variant, where it was kind of a, I think it's like a Hulk 340 homage. Real impressive variant. That was the first one I saw. So I saw that and I was like, what is this book? And then when I kind of looked it up, it seemed intriguing. Seems to be a lot of people like the book. Seems to be a lot of people paying attention to the book. So that was one not on the list that I would say keep an eye on. And while Brian's still getting something adjusted, I'm going to take this opportunity to go ahead and say there's also a My Little Pony miniseries that debuted yesterday. I actually don't remember the name. It's a 1 of 3 series, so there is a 1 in 10 incentive. I haven't heard a lot of buzz on it, so it wasn't something obviously put on the list. It wasn't a long-term play or anything. But again, the miniseries tend to be much, much lower printed than the I think it's Friendship is Magic, the main series. So that's something to keep an eye out for, especially if there's any new character development or anything like that.
Right. So, technical difficulties. We're not going to have the first appearance lineup like we normally do. We're just going to roll right into the first appearances, and we're going to kick it off with Major X #1 third print, correct?
Right. So there's some redundancy here. It's a late printing. We had some comments on the Instagram asking about late printings and the validity of their first appearance. That's a tough question for me to ask, but I would say that the market has deemed that their first appearances. I know that some comic purists don't like that idea, and I understand that argument. But there's too many cases, whether or not you're talking Secret Avengers with the first Agent Venom or Kamala Khan, where the second prints can actually command more value than first prints depending upon the cover art. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm just stating why there's an importance on later printings and why they may still be deemed first appearances. And while I'm not the person to make that call, we do list them when they're key appearances. So Major X, I would say at this point, is a key first appearance, at least as far as modern speculation play goes. Obviously, we talked a lot about Major X on this channel. He's definitely been a character that has gotten people talking, polarizing. Rob Liefeld, anything he does gets people talking in that direction. And his kind of cockiness and excited confidence with the success of the series has only stirred that further. So I do think that Marvel will see the money. I have advocated on this channel several times, follow the money. If the company sees money in something, they're going to put money in something, and where they put money is where we should probably be putting our money. So I do think there's going to be something happening with Major X. Having said that, I don't love the incentive play, but we'll definitely get into that later.
Right. And next on the first appearances this week was the Immortal Hulk #2 5th print, correct?
Right, and you can basically copy and paste kind of half of what I just said there. Again, you got late printing, key first appearance. First appearance of Dr. Fry, who if you don't know, if you aren't aware, if you've been living under a rock, has been a major first appearance in this Immortal Hulk series, Immortal Hulk #2. He was a villain on the original Hulk television series. This is the first time he appeared in comics. And obviously that Zafino 125 variant is an absolute monster. And people just keep looking for, more and more when it comes to these kinds of keys. So we're on the 5th print, and we get, again, a 125 incentive going with it.
Right. And then, of course, coming in last this week for first appearances is Immortal Hulk #18. And this is the new Abomination.
Right. So I think we're on this channel. People tend to be pretty spoiler requesting. I would say that's a fair statement.
Can I stop you just for a second, because we totally missed? We had another great Mike Allstott jersey display on the screen from Andy Tomlin before he had to run out. So definitely appreciate that. We're gonna start hanging all the jerseys we're getting up on the screen. We're gonna hang them up in the rafters.
Create our own little Hall of Fame.
But yeah, definitely want to call out people doing super chats and stuff. It's definitely worth pausing and interrupting for, because we definitely appreciate the support.
But yeah, so you guys seem pretty spoiler heavy. So we'll just go ahead and talk about. And if you haven't read it or you don't want to be spoiled, now would be the time to hit that mute button. But the character that's been throughout the series, Rick Jones, turns out to be Abomination. So that was kind of predictable. People were kind of pointing in that direction, but you get that kind of first full appearance here. Also, you get that full appearance of Harpy in this book as well. Harpy, kind of the new Harpy, kind of debuted in issue 16, kind of cameo style. We definitely get that full appearance in 18. Will it be called a full appearance by the market? I don't know. It may be, it may be a second appearance. Either way, you have a gorgeous Alex Ross cover. The Battle Lines cover's obviously been extremely popular. And I do think that there's some validity in this book. I think there could be some speculator fatigue with Immortal Hulk. I think we could see that setting in. But nonetheless, there's certainly some credence to this as a spec play.
Right. So that wraps up the first appearances for this week. I want to take another quick minute and welcome more people coming into the chat. We got Walt Parrish. We have Perry Comics. We have some new people I'm not used to seeing as well. We got SG, Comic Fu 2814. I'm not saying all these are new, but just that we've seen some new people coming in. So definitely appreciate everyone coming to the chat. And I always say this, I notice people in the chat that have their own YouTube channels. If you have one, make sure you put your channel name in the chat so people that are in there can also see and check out your content as well and subscribe to your channels, because it's all one big community here. And always willing. Love talking to other comic book people and love checking out other people's channels as well. So we are going to roll into the Reader Buzz section this week.
Yes.
And since the graphics aren't working as tonight with my computer being temperamental, I'm just going to bring up the BOLO list. And just recapping the Reader Buzz real quick, we got Batman Last Night on Earth, Doomsday Clock, Heroes in Crisis, Horror Comics, Little Bird 3rd print, Daredevil #6, Immortal Hulk 18, Angel #1, Battle Cats #1, and Superman Leviathan Rising. So we're going to go right into the first one, and that was Batman Last Night on Earth #1. I keep on wanting to say last night. But
yeah, I think I've written that like on 3 different places too. But yeah, this was a book I anticipated. This was a book I was excited for. I think, like a lot of speculators, I underplayed Batman Damned. Obviously, Brian and I remember were posting about the Bermejo art for Batman Damned way before it came out. But I don't think either of us like heavy spec played it. And then obviously we watched what happened in the secondary market with that book. Now, not to say that that's what happened with this book, because it certainly didn't. And that's not what's probably going to happen with this book. But I think there was too much cynicism with this book, because this book is already sold out at Diamond. There's a retailer in the community. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, so I'm not going to say his name. But he shared with us that about 50% of retail shops are sold out of this book. So this book is trending towards a sellout. We're on 1 day after release day. If you guys aren't familiar with retail ordering, if there's anything that retailers order heavy, it's Batman. They just know that. New Batman series comes out, you got to order it heavy. And this thing is kind of cool. You got the Joker on a cover, and obviously Batman Joker stuff does well. And then you got the whole Green Lantern element playing into it. And if you know nothing about this story, if you hadn't read a solicit, or if you didn't read the book yesterday, just seeing that cover interests you. I'm a Green Lantern fan, so it piqued my interest from the get-go. So I'm surprised that dealers weren't more bullish ordering this series. And I think that this is a series that collectors and speculators out there, if this is a book that you were expecting to take your time to pick up, you may need to think again. Again, I'm not telling you to run out and get it. I'm just saying, if this was a book you were thinking about speculating, you may want to make that move quickly, because the prices are already raising on eBay to like $1 over cover. And when you start to see that, it's only a matter of time. Those cover price, $1 over a cover, again, plus shipping, copies are going to end up drying up. And then we'll be looking 15, 20 level. I think we're probably headed in that direction. It'll be interesting to see. I haven't read the story. So if you've read this...
I've read it. It's like one of the only books I've actually gotten to read this week.
Yeah, I mean, just, 1 to 10, how would you say? Would you love it? Is it all right?
I would... First read, I'd give it a 7.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's broken up into like chapters,
right?
And then like the first part of it is like crazy, and it just gets crazier from there. So like, I'm gonna not spoil, but basically, Bruce Wayne wakes up in the hospital, and it turns out like it's kind of like Wizard of Oz type thing where the Joker is actually his doctor. Well, he's not in the hospital; he's in Arkham, and then like. All his doctors and people that have been caring for him while he was like in a coma, or like Harley Quinn and a bunch of all these other villains, and they're saying that all that was in his head, and basically he was the one that killed his parents. But and then from there it goes into like different parts. It's almost like Blade Runner meets freaking oh my goodness. Yeah. Max, I can't think of the movie.
Mad Max.
Golly, yeah, and it's a good read. I really enjoyed it, but it's just kind of crazy and out there. Like I need to read it again. So if anyone else in the chat has read this book, let me know your thoughts as well, because I enjoyed it. Wonder Woman's not in there. I mean, Wonder Woman's in there, but she's Diana, and it's totally different. And they're talking about Omega coming, but it's just crazy, and it's out there. But it was a good story.
Well,
like I said,
I think this is why the reader buzz section is my favorite section. So yeah, definitely let us know in the chat because I love hearing what you guys think about books. Like I said, it's a book I anticipate reading. I'm excited to read it. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think. And crazy, and the way Brian you described it, that doesn't push me away. That excites me almost because again, we've got plenty of Batman continuity stuff. That can stay true to form with the Batman lore. I love this Elseworld stuff. I love the almost indie comics feel. Brian and I obviously were indie comics guys. Indie Spotlight series show on the Simpleman Comics YouTube channel. Be on the lookout for that. We got a new episode this week that just debuted with Kanto creators from IDW. But yeah, so it's one of those things where it has that indie feel, that indie vibe. I think these stories have a chance to do well. I'm just shocked dealers didn't jump on it more with it being a Batman story. I also, excuse me if I'm wrong, I think it was Walt Parrish in the comments said that he saw cover A sell out right in front of him.
Well, no, he was saying how good my comic reviews are.
They are the best. We need that as an entire show, is Brian's comic reviews.
Yeah, it would be like you'd probably be more entertained watching C-SPAN. Well, it's different when you prepare for it, right? When you're like, but when it's like on the fly. I read it probably 30 minutes before the show tonight because it was one book that I really wanted to read. But yeah, and the lantern he carries around is freaking awesome. I'll say that without spoiling it, but.
Right. So, it's something to keep an eye on. Because I haven't heard a lot in the speculation community, mention this book leading up to its release, and then even within like yesterday and today, other than the retailer who, like I said, we read in the chat was talking about it, and when it opened my eyes and it made me kind of pay attention to it because it's surprising. I pre-ordered this book, and I feel like pretty heavy compared to what I would normally order books. So I'm surprised people didn't see it coming a bit. And again, Brian and I got hammered when we first started out with this new comic book day duo thing, hammering home the value of reading and the reader buzz and the fact that we noticed a trend in the community that reading could drive prices, and you could not be a speculator. And if everybody wants to read a book, it's going to drive a price. It won't matter. Yeah. And then speculators are late to that trend because they don't know what those reader buzz is. And that's why this section is on the list. That's why Brian and I on almost every piece of content talk about reading and the value of reading and the reader buzz. Speculators, we got to start respecting this reader buzz because, I mean, that's what's happening with this book is it wasn't on speculators' radar. Now it's selling out, and it could be trending towards a back issue gold. And unfortunately, it's going to get compared to Batman Damned. So people are going to say, well, it's not doing like Batman Damned numbers out the gate. No. But it's certainly doing better than people expected, and it's one to keep an eye out for. I think we should definitely put it on the rewind. I'll be interested to see next week. Prices may not go up, but are copies available? Can you find copies next week? I bet that's hard pressed.
Yeah, I remember there was, like you had mentioned, there wasn't a lot of buzz. I remember when this book was first announced and the cover art was first revealed, there was some slight buzz around it, and then like when it first came out and I saw just the cover A. I went and wanted to buy, was it Green Lantern number 9? Which one's the Skyver variant, right?
Yeah.
That has the Batman green Van Skyver variant.
And that's kind of why I thought that this would be popular, is because that variant was so popular. Yeah. But that actually brings me to what I was mentioning was I think cover A, usually we say cover B. We always advocate cover B. And cover B's jock. So usually you'd say, okay, you got major cover artists. Something about that cover A. Something about that cover, the simple silhouette, the Green Lantern, Joker face, that I think it almost, for this series, is going to be the classic cover. So that's just kind of my feeling. Plus, I think if dealers underordered this, they were more likely to order that Jock cover heavy because Jock's just such a known entity. And that's just my feeling. That's gut. I could be wrong. And when we do the rewind next week, we'll reach out to some retail partners and see what they have to say and what's going on in the market. But yeah, that's what we know so far. So that's something to be on the lookout for because I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that.
Right. So next on the Reader Buzz this week, we've had, can you believe it? Doomsday Clock, number 10.
Yeah. So this week was all about showing love to the series that people have politicked for. There are 3 series on this list that have been heavily politicked for. And they're on this list for good reason. Each of them individually had either a moment or something that people were anticipating this week. But I'll go ahead and spoil. Those 3 books were Doomsday Clock, Heroes in Crisis, and Daredevil. I mean, and when I look in the comments section, that's what we hear. Doomsday Clock, your big anticipation is the furthering of the Dr. Manhattan story. This issue is a Dr. Manhattan issue. But again, to reference the Hot and Cold show, we talked about this. Dan Piercy, our resident reading expert, our resident reading reviewer, he's more the comic review pro to Brian's novice. And he talked about this book as a cold property. And I said on the video that I almost wanted to get defensive, and because I love this series, and I'm a Watchmen fan, but I totally get what Dan's saying. This series has been going on since 2017. I mean, it's exaggeratingly long. We're getting an issue every 3 months. Brian and I had a conversation, I think in private, I don't even think it was on the mic, where we talked about how you can't keep up with the series. Yeah. You get a new issue in, you got to go back and read the last couple issues to remember where you were, because we're reading so many comic books on a monthly basis. This is a series that's built for trade. So I have this weird sneaking suspicion, because I'm a believer in the long-term value of Watchmen. I think the Watchmen TV show has a chance to do good being on HBO. I still don't think we've seen how deep DC can weave the Watchmen into the multiverse. And I also think this was a terrible debut of them just based on the schedule, even if the story's been great. My hope is, and I'll tell you in complete transparency, I haven't speculated on this. I've read this. I buy a reader copy, but I haven't bought copies to hold. But I've thought about it, because my feeling is that I think the trade is going to do exceptionally well. If you go look at Diamond trade paperback sales, Watchmen is always such a solid seller. I'm not comparing Doomsday Clock to Watchmen. I know Watchmen's a modern classic. But, they didn't make Watchmen 2. They made before Watchmen, but that was split up and took you different side streets at different creators. So Watchmen fans have been looking for something. And if, somebody comes in and they're introduced to Watchmen, they love it, this is something you can be like, hey, check them out with some characters that you're more familiar with. Also, there have been some new characters introduced in this, like the Marionette, that may have some legs. We're going to have to see where they're going. But this is a sleeper series. I think it's a sleeper series from a reader buzz standpoint. It's a sleeper series from a speculation standpoint, because it's so dead from a speculation standpoint. But the only thing I will say is you got to watch out for those print runs, because the print runs on this series are high, because reader buzz has been so strong and readers drive the market.
Right. So, and then next on the reader buzz this week, we had, like you kind of mentioned it already, but we have Heroes in Crisis number 9.
And this is my new favorite series. I jumped on this series, I want to say when issue 7 was being released. And this is another series, it hasn't been as bad, but it's been ill-timed as well. It hasn't felt like there was as much consistency, and I could even be off with that, but that's what tends to feel like when you have a company having multiple kind of crossover events going on at once. This story has been amazing, though. If you haven't gotten a chance to read this, check it out. It's a little different. Some people don't like Tom King's writing style. I'm a Tom King fan, so I'll go ahead and put that out there. I'm actually bummed about what happened on Batman. I'll admit I didn't love it. I thought Scott Snyder killed it, but I would love to have seen the guy finish the story. I'm glad he's going to get to finish it in Batman, Catwoman, not. But this story has been a passion project for Tom King. I got to meet Tom King when he was debuting Grayson, Agent of Spiral, and he was at Heroes Con, which, by the way, Simpleman's Comics will be in the building at this year. We are credentialed up, but I met him when he was at Heroes Con. He was tabling. And when I tell you that nobody was paying attention to this guy, nobody was paying attention to this guy. Nobody. He was by himself. Nobody was asking for his autograph. Grayson wasn't out yet, so he really didn't have much to sign. The only thing he had done is Nightwing number 30. And I went up, and I had loved the solicit for Grayson so much, because like I said, I like Elseworld stories, and Grayson just sounded different. I still think, by the way, Grayson would make an amazing movie. It would be James Bourne for the DC Universe. But I enjoyed that series. I enjoyed the solicitation. So I had bought a couple copies of Nightwing 30, brought them up to get them signed. I ended up getting to read issue 1 of Grayson ahead of time. He showed me Jock's original artwork for the variant cover and told me that, it was available for sale for $2,000. Could have bought it right there. And I really enjoyed the conversation with him, talking about his CIA background, PTSD, and how that plays into his writing and things like that. And it never is it more evident than with this story. This story is all about trauma and how people deal with trauma. And if you've ever been through that, I'm sure it's something you can relate to. It's not something I've personally been through, but I think that's where I find it fascinating, because it comes from a voice where you can tell the person writing it knows what they're talking about. It's about a place called the Sanctuary, where DC heroes and attempting to reform villains can go get aid. There's a major murder. Looks like there's two people who are guilty, Booster Gold and Harley Quinn. And then we find out it's another person who was, it was revealed last month. I'll just go ahead and say it's Wally West. Wally West committed the crime. And this issue, the last issue was like mind-blowing, and it was one of those comics and you're just like, oh my God, it's like good TV. And that was one of those issues. And it made me so amped to read this issue and see how this is going to resolve, what's going to happen with Booster Gold and Harley Quinn. And what's going to happen with Wally West, because it's all about the morality of a superhero. And I think it adds a lot of context to the DC universe. I'm also excited where they can go in the future with the Sanctuary. I'm going to go ahead and say be on the lookout for Heroes in Crisis #1, because I could see a Sanctuary playing a major role in a movie in the future in the DC universe, or multiple movies. And that could be a sneaky first appearance that literally nobody's talked about. But, yeah, so I just want to advocate for this story because I jumped on it late. Like I said, when issue 7 got released, I read the first 7 issues, and I binged it, and I was hooked, and I had to go back and reread because it's so complicated. But yeah, I really enjoyed the story. I think it's a great one. Issue 9 dropped yesterday. Spec standpoint, probably not. I do think it could be adapted, but again, DC's movie situation is a mess, so who knows?
Right. Speaking of Spec, one book that seems to be doing well this week so far is Horror Comics #1.
Yes. Another tie-in to the Hot Cold show. So if you're not watching the Hot Cold show, guys, you gotta get on board. It's Wednesday nights right here on Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, so it's a good lead-in for the BOLO show. Get your BOLO ready. But yeah, we talked about again Andy Tomberlin. This is the second week in a row I wanted to say Andy Samberg, but I've been watching too much Brooklyn Nine-Nine reruns on Hulu. But
sorry, not to interrupt you, but speaking of which, if you haven't watched the Unauthorized Bash Brothers on Netflix, definitely check that out if you're an Andy Samberg fan.
Yeah, definitely hysterical. But yeah, he talked about Antarctic Press kind of being on a losing streak. And I think this is the book to beat it. Now, I will say, shout out to Bradley Golden on Twitter. Let me tell you something. I have never seen a creator go
champion
harder.
The book.
Yeah, go harder to champion the book. And people can say that that's this or that, but that's what you got to do in indie comics. I'll give you a little spoiler. We talked to James Hake last night from Scout Comics, and that's one of the topics we talked about is the need in indie comics to promote yourself, to come on shows like the Indie Spotlight series show, to get out there on social media. And I think Bradley is a large reason why this book did what it did. Now, again, horror's hot right now. There's no doubt about it. The art in this book is stunning. And the book has like kind of multiple stories in it. And from an adaptation play, that's very attractive. Anthology series are popular. Just horror, everything, TV show, movies is popular. So you've got the main cover there where you get kind of that old school, kind of vintage golden age vibe. And then you've got the teether, which is one of the characters from the store, one of the stories variant, which was, I think, a $9.99 retail price most places. And then you've got the blank cover. It appears that cover A and cover B are sold out. I'm seeing a lot of cover Bs available on eBay for cover price. It seems like cover A is the more profitable play. And a lot of times that happens when you got these kind of inflated variant prices. Not a lot of publishers do that, but that's Antarctic Press does do that with like Rags and other books where they release these $9.99 variants. So I think the better play is probably that $3.99 kind of homage cover. But yeah, the book is doing extremely well. I haven't read it yet. And be honest with you, horror wasn't really a genre I was checking out a lot, but I've got my eye on it so much because, again, as a speculator, you got to pay attention. You got to go where the money is, and especially like Brightburn and what it did. Whether it does it from the box office, the buzz standpoint, the horror movie game is serious. So I expect horror comics to be one to keep an eye out for. And again, my hat's off to Bradley Golden for everything. And if you haven't followed him on Twitter, be sure to follow him on Twitter. I think, was it Bradley Golden 4 or 44?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, search that, check that out, because he does a lot. He put a lot of info out there on this book early. So if you were following him, you had plenty of opportunity to pick up this book and the variant, the regular book and the variant. So go ahead.
I'm just saying, yeah, it is Bradley Golden 4. I just put it in his Twitter handle in the chat as well.
There you go.
And I think it's good because he's basically he's creating a horror universe between this and other horror titles that he's writing. So I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely. And speaking of which, man, I love, I love picking up kind of like those movie properties, getting them produced at TV, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, that stuff. Brightburn needs a comic. Somebody needs to get with James Gunn and make that a comic, because that seems like it's obviously a movie ripped from comics, but they should do the reverse with that. Some indie publisher, some creator out there needs to make that happen. Right. Arun and Boom Studios, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. So next on the Reader Buzz this week, we have Little Bird #1 third print.
Oh, we got Bradley Golden in the chat, by the way, guys. So shout out to Bradley Golden. You guys, that's the writer right there in the chat.
I was looking, I was like, where? Now I see it. Yeah, so welcome, Bradley Golden. We were just talking about your book and how people can follow you on Twitter. So also want to welcome Just a Little Podcast. If you guys are interested in podcasts, not just in comic books, but especially movies, definitely check out Just a Little Podcast. They had a little battle going on. What was better, 80s or 90s? I voted for 80s just because that's mostly my childhood is the 80s. But Just a Little Podcast, great podcast. And their name doesn't do it justice because that's a great podcast. So it's more than just a little podcast. It's a fantastic podcast.
But, and the correct answer was 90s, but we'll move on from that. But yeah, so we'll talk Little Bird #1 third print. Obviously, Little Bird we've talked about on the show. This one, the buzz is growing. We've talked to other creators, the guys who wrote Kanto, talked about this book glowingly. So it's a book that's kind of on people's radar. Image Comics has been kind of hit or miss with some of the creator-owned stuff of late. It hasn't been guaranteed money. A lot of the stuff used to be quick flips, and we're seeing more kind of slow burns with some of these series that are, again, creating major reader buzz. There wasn't a ton of speculation on Little Bird based on any sort of, character development type thing. It was purely a reader play. People were interested in the solicit. There was talk, but the talk certainly came from more of the collecting reading community. And once they picked it up and the buzz got out that people loved the series, that's when you started to see copies dry up, and now the speculation is high on this one.
Right. Got caught up in the chat. Battling 80s, 90s.
Born in the 80s, but raised in the 90s, baby.
Yeah. That's me. I'm older. I was born late 70s. 80s, we had Rambo, Return of the Jedi. I mean, we had Goonies. 90s, like I said in the chat, you had New Kids on the Block. and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Vanilla Ice.
Hey, I'm fine with that. I need an action figure. I still say, man, we need a Vanilla Ice action figure.
Yeah. But
they need to do a retro.
Yeah. 80s, man, that's what part of my comic collecting is. I feel like I'm buying back some of my childhood with, especially like this Masters of the Universe and stuff like that. But
oh yeah, 100%. I think that's half of the fun with comic book collecting is buying all that stuff that we couldn't afford back then, or we never would have dreamed of owning, or that just makes you feel like you did when you were a kid. I think that's why I love those properties like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers and Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, 80s had Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I'm pretty sure the 90s had the Super Mario Brothers movie.
I can't even argue that.
But,
we also had that terrible Captain America movie as well.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, moving in through the list, the next one is, of course, one of the ones I've definitely been champion. Fun read. Well, I'd say fun. Great read. And that's Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. And this is issue number 6. This is like the start of the new arc, right?
Right. So, like me, I hadn't read the first series. I'm a huge Frank Miller era Daredevil fan, so I am a huge Daredevil fan. But I'm kind of a lapsed Daredevil fan. There's so much to read out there. I really haven't read Daredevil in a while. Charles Soule's Daredevil I kind of peeked into. I know a lot of people like it. It just didn't really, it didn't really hook me. And I love Chip Zdarsky. I'm a huge Chip Zdarsky fan. I love him. I love all the indie stuff that he's done. I've loved the humor he's brought to Marvel. I was thrown off when they announced this book because I like Chip Zdarsky from a humor perspective, and obviously that's not the play you want with Daredevil. Yeah. But that's not really the route he's gone with this either. So I didn't jump on this, but man, Brian will wear you down if you're not on something that's good. He will keep letting you know. So it got to a point where it's like, man, this guy is going to keep telling me how good this series. And then I started hearing everybody else tell me. Everybody in the chat starts saying it started to be the book people were talking about. Why isn't it on the list? And I kept saying, if it's not on the list, you guys got to talk about it because I'm not hearing you talk about it. And this was the week that changed. And I think kicking off a new arc had a lot to do with it. So it was a great opportunity to jump on. Also, this arc, I think, is going to be the arc. This is the one. Chip Zdarsky's first arc, I think, was a warm-up. While it was great, I think it was setting up for this. And if you haven't read the solicitation to issue 9, I've been telling everybody pre-FOC BOLO on that. Looks like we're going to have a new Daredevil, probably for a period of time. We've done that before when Black Panther was the Man of Fear, but we could have a new character. We don't know where Chip's going to go with this at this point. All we know is that this storyline is all about Matt having to wrestle with being good, bad, what's his role in Hell's Kitchen, the devil, and all that. Yeah, and that's kind of classic tropes. Obviously, as a Catholic and dealing with those right and wrongs and the kind of the gray areas that he has to play in. Sounds like a great storyline. I have no doubt Chip Zdarsky will push it to the limits because that's what he does. And I think issue 6 is a great time to jump on if you're looking to read. Also, if issue 9 and issue 10 do what I think they have a chance to do, speculation-wise, people are going to go back and look for this issue because it's the issue that kicked off the arc. So I actually considered this as a long-term spec play. I just think that it's a very long shot spec play, but I do think there's a possibility there. And I'll tell you guys right now, we talked about Immortal Hulk, people kind of fading off of that, and people put their attention in different places. So people have taken their attention off of Immortal Hulk, okay, but it seems like a lot of attention is starting to come to Daredevil. So now is the time, if you're in your LCS and you see those early back issues 1 through 5, some of those later printings even, now's the time to pick them up for cover price, because if this arc pops and does huge numbers and starts selling out and books go above cover price, people are going to go back. And the print runs aren't enormous on those early issues, so they're not hugely readily available. And I don't think a lot of people realize that they were all selling out and all going to later prints. So that's something to keep an eye out for, and I definitely think Daredevil is something I've got my eye on. And again, that's why we advocate reading on the BOLO show and Simpleman's Comics, because if you weren't reading this series, this may catch you off guard. But not Brian. Brian's been on it for 6 months, and that's allowed him an advantage that I don't have because I'm late. So keep your eye out on that one. If you're like me and you're late, it's not too late. Now's the time.
Right. Yeah, I think there might be something. I won't say definitely move, but a lot of those hidden gem and those incentive variants that were out there for it, they weren't that expensive. I mean, 1 in 50s, you can get them for $40 or so, I've seen. But I like the regular Tedesco covers, and I've been liking the Chichetto second print covers as well. But the story is fantastic, and one of my favorite covers. I think issue 1 had, like, anything Marvel issue 1 right now has, like, what, 10,000 covers, but
Right.
that Delato, the 1 in 10, that all black cover, I picked that up from Slabbed Heroes at a 9.8 early, and that's probably one of my favorite covers for sure. But definitely enjoyed Daredevil, and I'm glad other people that are reading it are enjoying it as well, because they definitely wouldn't buy it off of my reviews alone, that's for sure. My awesome reviews. They're like, I'd call them more like 90s style reviews. But next.
I don't know about this. All these 90s digs, man. I'm coming with some pre-written. I didn't know we were going to get in a freestyle battle, 90s versus 80s. I wasn't ready for this.
But, all right, so moving on to the reader buzz. Next up, we had Angel number 1 from Boom Studios, right?
Right. So again, we talked about the Buffy stuff. I gotta be honest with you. When Arun even first started pitching to us that Buffy was going to be popular, I'll speak for myself, but I kind of was like, well, we'll see.
I
he
agree.
has to say that.
I was like,
he's promoting it. Right. I kind of laughed it off. So I know, like, when people see us talking about it, their thought is, well, you know, they had the show with him and maybe they're doing him a favor or something like that. And guys, that's not the case. Number one, I always advocate respecting fan bases, and I'll be the first one to admit I don't think I gave proper respect. Again, it's not something I'm familiar with or something like people around me were into. So I think I underestimated the size and scale of it. Also, I think Boom is just doing an exceptional job. It reminds me a lot of, like, when Star Wars took over, Marvel took over Star Wars from Dark Horse, and they were like, you know, we kind of want to redo everything and modernize it and you know, respect to what they've done before us, but at the same point, put our spin on it. So, you know, all the variant covers, the one per store retailer cover, it looks like a Virgin cover right there, but it's not. It actually has the trade dress on it. That sold out at Midtown at $85. So now for Angel issue number 0 and issue number 1, there were 1 per store retailer incentives. Now, will that continue? I don't know. But these books are selling out. This book's gone to a second print already. You know, it's something to keep an eye out for, because I just don't think that the attention is being paid yet by the speculation community. And there are some big variants coming out from Yasmin Putri, from Jenny Frizen, from there's a lot of events, a lot of first appearances coming down the Buffy pike. And, you know, you got to notice something, like Joss Whedon is doing something with these properties with Boom. You know, he's rebooted Firefly and rebooted Buffy. I would be on the lookout for a media announcement coming at some point. I feel like if you tried to reboot Buffy, there would be some problems because some of the storylines were out of date, like, you know, the whole coming out of the closet storyline that Arun talked about on the Indie Spotlight series show. It doesn't really play in Los Angeles in 2019. Coming out of the closet isn't that huge deal that it once was. So you've got to get these new updated stories, and I think that that's what's going on. I think Joss Whedon is putting things on paper that will end up on the screen one day. Now, I have no basis of knowledge of that, but that's a gut feeling I have. And I would be on the lookout. Again, I myself, and again, total transparency on this show, have started to look into Buffy variants. I've bought a few. I've speculated on a few books. And again, nothing secretive. Check out that Indie Spotlight series show. Arun's going to give you all the info on what you need to get involved in the Buffy speculation game.
Right. Yep. And we even cut the clip down to just the Buffy section. So
right.
That way you don't have to watch the whole interview. But, yeah, like, I'll back Jack up. When we first started talking about it during the interview, I was just like, yeah, but the way he is either, one, this book's going to go in places because where he was talking about where it's going seems really phenomenal, or 2, he's a good, that's why he's VP of marketing. But I think it's the latter, and the stuff he's telling us about the story and this whole Buffy universe that they're going to be building at Boom sounds really interesting. So I'm gonna get in from the beginning and read the issues before, and then if it's good, anything that's good after I get the single issues, I usually end up picking up the trades or the omnibuses later on if I can find it for cheap. So.
Well, and that's the cool thing about it is because I've never watched Buffy. I think I saw like the original movie back at that in like the
I watched
90s.
the movie. I didn't really watch the show.
Yeah, I think I saw the movie in theaters when I was like a kid, but I have literally no memory of it other than a cheerleader outfit from.
Yeah, and Pee Wee Herman's in it.
And I don't even remember that, but that as a 10-year-old boy, all I remember is the cheerleading outfit. but yeah, so from a reading perspective, yeah, I've looked forward to getting into reading some of like the advanced copies and stuff that we've gotten access to because it's all new to me. It's all new story to me. So I find it interesting, and I'm trying to give it an open-minded chance. And yeah, so I advocate people do that. And again, if you're a lapsed Buffy fan, if maybe you were into the show and now you feel like you've grown out of it, give it a try because they're modernizing it. They're bringing it up to the today's day and age. And look what Archie Comics was able to do with Riverdale and Sabrina. I think it's my opinion, but I think Joss Whedon wants some of that Archie TV money.
Right. And Comics Misexplained said 80s Guys needs a Lost Boys comic. They had one not too long ago, right? I forget who put it was it Boom that put it out? No.
It was either Boom or Dynamite.
Yeah.
It was one of them, but it did
one
not
of them
do
had
that
the
well.
Fiona Staples Saxman variant.
Mm-hmm.
But next on the Reader Buzz this week is Battle Cats #1. This is volume 2, and this comes from Mad Cave Studios. This is one I actually did get to read in advance, so I really enjoyed this. I actually enjoyed this more than when I first read Battle Cats 1 from the first volume. But Mad Cave, especially Mark London doing the writing for a lot of these books, I mean, these stories are fantastic, which, there's my word again, but what do you think, Jack?
Right, I agree. I never read Volume 1. I did read issue #1 for Volume 2. I enjoyed it. I don't think you have to read Volume 1 to be able to read Volume 2. I will say I came out of it saying I need to go read Volume 1 to like know that I'm grasping everything the way that I want to be and to feel like confident in the world and everything. But honestly, I love Mad Cave and I love Mark London, but I'm going to speak honest. This is another book that I kind of laughed at. Not laughed at. I laughed off for a while from a speculation standpoint. Like look at it's Battle Cats. So I was like, well, I can't see a movie of this. And, the Reader Buzz on Volume 1, I saw the book everywhere. I felt like at conventions and things like that. I always saw the book, but I never felt like this is a book I need to be checking out. And then as we started to get more involved with Mad Cave and I started reading some of their stuff with Knights of the Golden Sun, Honor and Curse, I came back around with a kind of eye-opened, optimistic mind to Battle Cats, and I think this is maybe one of the most fun books that they do. So I'm looking forward to going and reading the trade from the first series. I think this is the most slept-on book easily that Mad Cave releases. It's kind of like I don't want to say their flagship because they have bigger books, but it was like that first book that had some real success. So it's kind of Mark London's baby, and I think this book is underlooked. And again, it's another book where Reader Buzz is super strong. Everything Mad Cave is putting out from Mark London the Reader Buzz is undeniable. And it's another book where it's not hugely printed, so getting copies at your LCS wasn't the easiest thing for most readers and speculators. So I would definitely say look for the Mad Cave Studios web store. I don't for sure know they have copies, but I would guess they probably have copies. And be on the lookout at conventions for their booths and things like that. But I don't know. I'm more optimistic about this title than I was before. And, I would love to know in the chat, did you guys read the first volume of Battle Cats? Have you checked out Battle Cats #1? And, would you be open to reading Battle Cats Volume 1 to, check it out? Or is it something that you felt like wasn't your cup of tea either? But let us know in the comments because, again, that's the point of the reader section. It's kind of been awesome. It's opened my eyes to a lot of books. And you got to get off that purchasing for the cover and really kind of look a bit deeper, especially with what animation's doing now. You can't rule out anything as far as an adaptation either. That's just the reality. And this, speaking of 80s, this almost feels like an 80s cartoon property.
Yeah. I mean, I read the first series just because when it was solicited, which I think Cantankerous even put in the chat, but first thing I thought of was Thundercats.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not really. He asked if it's a Thundercats ripoff. It's not. There's some similarities for me from my experience with Thundercats, but it's a different story. And Peter Rana put in the chat that he can't find issue 2 from the first volume to save his life. So. And the last on our reader buzz for this week is the Superman Leviathan Rising #1.
This was almost my long-term pick of the week. And I'll say that because I'm very bullish on the Leviathan storyline. And I realize I'm going out on a limb on this because I have no reason. It's just kind of a gut. I've talked about Brian Michael Bendis and his move to DC Comics on this channel a few times. I'll be very brief about it, but again, follow the money. DC paid a fortune to bring him over from Marvel. Think, if you're a sports fan, major free agent acquisition, like whoever's going to bring in Kevin Durant this year. You don't bring Kevin Durant in and then stick him on the bench. If you bring in Kevin Durant, if you pay him a max salary, you're going to put him front and center. He's going to be the featured guy on your team, and you're going to give him the ball with a chance to score. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's what DC Comics is doing with Brian Michael Bendis. The ball is in his hands. It's his to score with. And he already has a hit with Naomi. It's undeniable. It's bringing in money in the secondary market. It's buzzing with readers. It's still going. It's going to take a break and come back for more. By the way, Naomi is going to show up on the pages of Action Comics very soon, so be on the lookout for that. And I talked on the comicbookinvest.com CBSI BOLO article in the back issue BOLO section, which is exclusive to comicbookinvest.com. I talked about the Action Comics Leviathan Rising story and how we are going to get into this Leviathan storyline. We don't know yet who Leviathan is. Leviathan, of course, is a group within DC Comics, but there is a person that seems to be heading them wearing a mask. We don't yet know who this is, propositioning different people, trying to turn almost a DC Civil War. It's been an interesting read. I'm excited for the miniseries, and I just have this feeling. Brian Michael Bendis, I put him in the and I hate it's a sloppy comparison, but I put him in the Rob Liefeld category. He's somebody with an extremely large amount of fans who have bought and loved his product. But he also has a lot of haters and a lot of detractors. And I like a guy with a lot of haters and a lot of detractors because that means that people aren't going to order the book. And when that happens, these books become available or don't become available and they dry up. And I think that the Leviathan event has a chance of that. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's got to be a popular story. It's got to connect with readers. But I'm betting on Brian Michael Bendis doing that. This book here is a $9.99 cover price. And we talk about books like this. Very little incentive for a retail store to take a risk on, again, a crossover tie-in, event tie-in book that, is a Superman story. Superman books aren't killing it on the market. And I don't think that the supply of this book will meet demand. It's already drying up. It'll be hard to make money on a $10 book because even if you sell it for $20, you take out shipping, you take out your fees, and you're not making enough money really to make your time worth it, unless you're trying to build up feedback. But if that story pops, if that Leviathan event pops up, best case scenario, the way I felt like Naomi would or Major X would, I think this book has a chance to come back and be a popular back issue because I don't think it's going to be like readily available with that $9.99 cover price. So again, be on the lookout for that one. I'm not advocating you to go out and spend $10 a pop all day, every day on this book. It's definitely one to see if you have that good relationship with a retailer where you can get that 25% off or something like that. But it may be a book you want to grab one or two. And another thing I've advocated before is sets. If you're already reading Action Comics and you're going to put a set together with the Leviathan stuff and the Leviathan miniseries, throw this one in there because I bet a lot of sets won't include it because it's a $10 book. And that could be the difference between you selling your set and not selling your set, even if you break even on this individual issue.
Right. And you talk about Brian Michael Bendis and then Superman. I don't knock Brian Michael Bendis, especially for the story and him coming over, but New 52 Superman to me nah, not very good, right? And then with Rebirth, when the Rebirth launched with, what was it, Tomasi writing it? Between the Superman Rebirth and Flash were like two of my... I still read Flash, still love Flash. But when the Superman Rebirth launched, I enjoyed that comic again. I haven't been reading the Bendis part of it, but...
You didn't like the New 52, like around issue, like I think it was 38 when Jeff Johns took over?
Yeah, I started reading it again, and then there was what is it? The Hell on Earth storyline wasn't too bad before that, but
that Jonathan Kent stuff. When they got into the Jonathan Kent stuff, I don't want to use the term. I almost use the term hated. I don't want to say hated. Superman's probably my least favorite character for the same reasons that a lot of people bag on him. Just that Boy Scout. Everything's easy and perfect for him if he wants it to be. I don't relate to that, so that's not something that a character I really ever read and got into. And that late in the New 52 run, ironically going into Convergence, was that kind of hooked me. And then those Superman mini-series that they did in between. So like American Alien, I thought was good.
American Alien was real good. And that was another one that picked up secondary market from reader buzz.
Exactly. People slept on that at first. It got a little bit of variant buzz, but still to this day, I have several copies in the long box of American Alien #1, and I think it's a back issue book. I think it's a book that readers will want to pick up over the years. So I pick that book up when I see it for $1, $2, something like that.
Yeah, and the Jeff Johns, when he took it away, it was like, you said 38, right? That was like the red cover where he was kind of like, I remember that. And there was like all types of, that was when the convention foil variants were like the thing to get.
Yes, and that was an omitted book from the Cold List. I think Clint Joslin did that one. But that is certainly cold. Those convention foil variants, that was whack from the beginning, to be honest with you. But people did jump on them in the beginning, and then like a lot of trends, they get overdone. It went from DC releasing 1 or 2 at a convention to like 6. We don't need a foil variant for Catwoman #4 or something like that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we even had like some CBSI guys that kind of got burned on that because the second cycle around, a bunch of people went to, I think it was at Baltimore, bought a crap load of the foil variants they were selling, and had trouble unloading them. But so that brings us to the end of the Reader Buzz section of the BOLO List tonight. I do want to say once again, stick around in the live chat if you're there, because we're going to be giving away a Stranger Things exclusive variant from Black Cape Comics. They were nice enough to send us this book. It is signed by the cover artist, who I'm a dumbass and don't remember the name right now, but I have it right here. So we're going to be doing a trivia question. It's going to be a Stranger Things trivia question, by the way, so brush up on your Stranger Things within the next 20 minutes or so. And with that question, whoever gets the correct answer first will win this comic tonight.
Right. Again, that's exclusive for the live listeners. So you guys make sure you stay in the chat and be ready.
So, and I will apologize. The normal graphics aren't with us as much tonight. We had a hiccup, so I had to cancel it out. But going now into the Variant Buzz section, we're just going to kick it off here and go into making sure the graphics aren't working. But we're going to go first with Major X #1. This is the third print, the fantastic Marvel that everybody's loving, the third print Incentive 1 in 25 variant.
Yeah, so again, don't love the concept of these 1 in 25 late printing variants. I get it. These late printings have become more and more popular. As books become more and more popular, they want to incentivize retailers for ordering more and more. A lot of retailers were ordering only a handful of copies of these books. They were selling out and then popping on the secondary market. And then even worse than that, which is what I really think is why we got these, is the store variants. Because as soon as they started creating store variants for these books and stores started ordering 3,000 copies of a store variant, well, then they also want those incentives because, they need that icing on the cake. So I think that's what happened. Again, now, this book, from a pure speculation standpoint, if you bought this book for ratio at your LCS, which, by the way, your LCS was friendly because most places were selling this double ratio from the get-go. You made some money because this book has been a $50 to $60 seller. And I'm not surprised. Again, Major X is more popular than the naysayers want to give it credit. And Liefeld has a hit on his hands. But we have to be careful with things like this. Again, I don't want to play $10 comic cop. I don't want to play $50 comic cop. That's not my role. I'm a real positive guy, honestly. I'm bullish on the industry as a whole. So I don't think little things like this are going to crash and burn anything. I don't play those apocalyptic games. But at the same point, I do think that this is not a trend that's going to play out real well. And I don't want to ruin late printings because late printings are cool. And I think between a store variant and the incentive, it's going to almost kill the actual third print of this book. I think that will be the forgotten book. And the other problem that you get into is whenever you got a book that's selling for double ratio out the gate, it means a retailer can order it at $2 a book for basically cost. So a retailer can pay $50 for 25 books of Major X number 1 third print. They can sell the variant and make their money back, and then they can dump the regular book for $1 each, and they're going to double their money. And that's not good for the industry. Not to say every retailer is doing that, but you end up getting those kinds of plays from retailers. And any kind of preemptive dumping onto the market is not good.
Right. Like I always say, this is one of the books, whenever we talk about Major X, whenever we talk a lot about Liefeld, I always say buy what you like, and this is one that's just not on my radar, so I'm kind of have recused myself from Major X. But next, keeping with the later printings and center variants, we have Immortal Hulk number 2, 5th print, 1 in 25.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I was just saying, this is the Virgin variant of the Alex Ross cover, correct?
Right, and I think there's a little more kind of value in that fact. Not, again, I think the black and white Liefeld is cool. But Alex Ross has kind of made this series. He has been the major reason for the success of the series. Yeah, he's been doing the covers for the whole series. Joe Bennett's been doing the interiors. Joe Bennett did the cover for the regular 5th print. And the incentive being an Alex Ross Virgin, I totally get the appeal of this. So this one I get a little more. It's doing a little better than Major X is doing. But at the same point, my concerns are still the same. The actual 5th print Joe Bennett, I don't expect to have a whole lot of value. With this book going for $80, again, with the math that I just gave you of a retailer picking this book up, 25 copies of this book for $50, I could buy 100 copies of this book and pay $200, and with the variant going for $80 each, turn that around for $320. I'm already profitable, so who cares what happens to the regular books? And that's just not good. Again, not good for the hobby. We don't need LCSs sitting on stacks of books. We don't need LCSs dumping books onto the market. So I would rather see late printings have been done the way they were done, and that's why we were advocating on the show the value of late printings, because we thought that they were being slept on. Too much attention now. I can't say that anymore. And if there was one late printing from these 3 books that I actually like, or this week that I actually like, it might be the Venom 13 second printing. Even though I talked on the show that I don't love that book, I don't even really consider it a first appearance. I think that book will probably be lower printed and may last the test of time longer than the regular covers of either of those 2 books that I released today or yesterday.
Right. And then next, this is one of the books that I was really looking forward to that came out this week. And this is the B cover variant for it. And that's She Said Destroy from Vault Comics. It's got the Saga homage to it. As soon as I saw this in solicits, just the Saga homage appealed to me. I was like, oh, I'm grabbing 4 copies of that. But
yeah, I like it. And I think we've talked about this. We produced a Vault Vintage variant. We did Queen of Bad Dreams. If you guys haven't seen it, head to comicbookinvest.com. We still have copies available. $2 of every purchase goes to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Your book will be shipped in a Mylar bag. It'll be shipped in a Gemini mailer. Again, we of all people know how a book needs to be shipped and the care that you want and appreciate going into a book that's coming to you, especially one that you're paying $20 for, $22 shipped. Again, that's shipping included. We've got experience with dealing with Vault and the Vault Vintage line. And I mentioned to the guys, obviously we did a Golden Age cover. I love that Vault is doing these modern homages because I think that that's somewhere people haven't gone. We've seen the Golden Age. We've kind of seen that classic Bronze, Silver Age, all the way up into like the 90s. These iconic covers. But there's so many new iconic covers being made, whether it's Edge of the Spider-Verse, whether it's Saga, whether it's any number of modern indies like Walking Dead. We're seeing a lot of classic modern covers be made. And, how many times can ASM 300 be homaged? How many times can, you name it, Captain America #1 be homaged? How many times can you homage these books before it gets to a point where it's like, okay, this has been done? And I like this book because it stands out immediately. You look at it, you immediately know it's Saga. And if you're going to read the book, you might as well pick up the cover B because you can kind of hedge your bet with both the cover art and the actual reading of the book. And Vault's been on fire right now. And they're coming hard in 2019. They call it their 2019 class. It's kind of like a graduating class of their new creators, releasing all of these great books onto the market. Definitely be on the lookout. I think there's a movement going on with Vault. And we'll be sitting down with them next week to talk all things Vault Comics on the Indie Spotlight Series show. So be on the lookout for that episode coming soon.
Right. And for those that might be listening or watching and aren't aware of the Saga cover that we're talking about, look at the cover art for Saga #8. And if you're not aware of what Saga is, definitely run to the store and pick up trade, omnibus, or whatever you can and start reading because it's definitely one of the, I didn't say fantastic, but one of the best modern comics right now. Not like stuff maybe that came out in like the 90s.
Right.
So.
The best stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We know better than that.
But next on the variant buzz list this week, we have Amber Blake #3, and this is the variant for that as well, right?
Right, 3 for 3. Amber Blake, the Cat Noden variants. They're on fire. Now, again, this one dropped off from the first two. Part of that is what just happens. We talked about the drop-off. Again, to plug again, be on the lookout for that Scout Comics episode with James Hake. But we talked about the drop-off. He said that issue 1 to 2 usually sees a 50% drop-off. And then when you go to issue 3, you're breaking even at that point as a publisher most of the time. So you start to realize that the trend is for a book by the time it hits the third issue to kind of go down. I think this isn't so much that as it is speculators finally woke up, stores finally woke up to the fact that these 1 in 10 variants were hitting $100 once they were released. And I imagine many more people pre-ordered this issue. Because again, if you look at the cover price of this book, for a store to pre-order 10 copies wasn't costing them that much. And they were able to make money on the variant alone. And then, hey, if I can turn a few readers onto this book, great. So I just think it got ordered a little higher. Having said that, it was still going like 3 times ratio. So you're still talking a winner. It just wasn't the booming success the first two were. If you're a believer in this series, though, be on the lookout for these eBay auctions. Because I've seen sales recently of like issue 1 go for still like $70. But then I've also saw an auction go for $17. I saw a couple in like the 20s. So be on the lookout because there is some availability to grab some of these when no one's kind of paying attention to some of these auctions with kind of like the no buy it nows.
Yeah, and like the only thing that kind of turns me off from these variants is just the size of the books.
The size, yeah.
But yeah, and I think we mentioned it before, but you definitely check out the writer on Instagram.
Yes.
But
it's worth a Google.
Yes. So going next into the variant buzz this week, we kind of talked about it before, but this is the teether variant for Horror Comics #1.
Right. Again, seems to kind of be like the popular character story from the Horror Comics #1 teether, and yeah. So like we said, the $10 cover price, book sold out. Sold out at most retailers before cover A sold out. Like we said, we just talked about it's tougher to make profit on cover B, but could it be the long-term cover? We tend to see those variants be the choice. So we'll see. But there's definitely a buzz on it. And again, shout out to Bradley Golden, who was in the chat earlier. I don't know if he's still there, but who definitely pushed this book and got it in front of as many people as possible. And again, the book sells itself. The artwork's amazing. The story was great.
Yep. Yeah, and like we said, if you've read this, make sure you hit Bradley up on Twitter, because he's welcome to people's feedback for sure. He's asking for it. So, and I think this is one of the big winners next for the variants this week, and that is the Rick and Morty, right? The 50 variants.
Yeah, yes. These are kind of cool. So they have this week they released Connecting 50s variant set. They also released, and I kind of will include it all together. I probably should have specifically noted it, but they also released reprints to 1 through 5 that connected. So this was all done for this 50th issue anniversary set. So you see the covers that you see on screen there, as well as this 1 through 5 connecting set. I think that Rick and Morty fans, this is another thing. Rick and Morty is another property I never got into. I've never seen an episode of the show, so it doesn't necessarily connect with me. I'm not like an Adult Swim guy. Having said that, I respect the fan base. It's real, and there's a lot of back issue gold with Rick and Morty. Again, though, but having said that, issues are still available at Diamond. We've heard from retailers that, it's not one to say you want to run out and grab tons of copies on a spec basis, because even if the book's sold out at retail level right now, Diamond has more copies. Having said that, it's a solid long-term play. Keep an eye out on this one, because this is one I've got my eye out for. I had my eye out for pre-release as a possibility, both issues, the Connecting 50s and the issues 1 through 5 connecting set, especially that issue 1. But it's now one I'm kind of looking at. I wonder if dealers ordered that heavy and if it sits and ends up cheap, because this would be a great book to pick up on discount. That could be a slow riser as time goes on.
So there's been a couple. It's best offer accepted, but there's been a couple sold listings on eBay for the set of these covers on the screen for $1,000, but best offer accepted. So I don't know what. And then the other covers looks to be almost around cover price so far. But the Rick and Morty, especially, you saw him freaking jump up there a while ago. I'm with you. I've never really watched the show. I never got into the comic books for it, but I know there's an audience for him out there. Put it that way.
Right.
And with that wraps up the Variant Buzz section for us. And again, people in the chat right now, we've seen some other people rolling in. Definitely, the conversation in the chat, sometimes I get distracted because it's so good in there that I'll end up chatting, and Jack's looking at me like, "Hey, dummy, you gonna talk?" But
I was just doing that. I was just doing the same thing, sitting here reading the chat.
But so yeah. Talking about Spider-Man, how Spawn, if they think issue 301 is going to be another homage of Spider-Man. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. But before we get into Jack's long-term play, so get your fingers ready on the keyboard. We are going to do the giveaway right now for the Stranger Things #1. Stranger Things 6 #1, sorry. Once again, this was donated for a giveaway from Black Cape Comics. Definitely check them out. I actually have won a giveaway from Just a Little Podcast, where it was they did an exclusive variant for Ogre #1 from Source Point Press. And since then, I've been shopping from Black Cape Comics. Can't say enough good things about them. So definitely check them out for books that you can't find. And they also have good exclusives. So can't thank them enough also for donating this book for the giveaway. And with that, we're going to do the trivia question, which is Stranger Things related. And for the trivia question, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to tell you the question. The first person that puts the answer in the chat correctly will win it, but we will announce the winner after Jack's long-term play. So you have some time if you have to research it, but whoever puts in the chat first wins the comic book. So the question is, what is the name of the middle school that Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will go to in Stranger Things? And having said that, Jack, we're going to go into your long-term play right now, and we're going to talk about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 39.
Right. This was a tough week for a long-term play, because any play that you made this week is truly a long-term play. There's not a lot that I look at and say, well, in 2 or 3 weeks, this might pan out. So this is my pick for a couple different reasons. And I saw there was a comment on Instagram. Somebody said, why issue 39? Issue 40 is going to be the first appearance of the White Ranger. And, I said, well, tune into the show. And that's kind of the reason I'm going to tell you why I think that 39 is a long-term spec play. We are about to begin a brand new story arc with Power Rangers. This is going to be their big 2019 event. And if you took part in their 2018 event, then you know that there were first appearances, that some of the issues 25, 26, 27, all hit back issue seriously gold. I'm talking $25, $30 an issue at one point for just cover A's. Some of the unlockable variants did extremely well. So if you've paid attention to that last year, then you know we're gearing up for that. And this is kind of a prologue for that. It kind of enters into the storyline. So I think it's kind of getting slept on, and everyone's looking at issue 40 as the start of the storyline, and it is. But all over the book, it's advertised about how they're entering into the grid, and I think that's getting overlooked. Also, issue 38, as Arun highlighted on the Indie Spotlight Series show on the Boom episode, and again, we've got the micro content of just the Power Rangers part. He said issue 38 was the first appearance of the new Solar Rangers team. Issue number 39 is the first cover appearance. And the reason why that's important, again, first cover doesn't beat first appearance, but we've talked about the value of a Ranger Slayer. Lord Draken is the holy grail right now as far as Power Ranger speculation, but Ranger Slayer is coming in at kind of a close second, maybe a 1B. And there's a lot of meat on the bone for the Ranger Slayer, who, again, first appeared in Go-Go Power Rangers number 8. And now she's gone and she's got her own team. She's leading her own team. And, again, you got to follow the money. Boom, in kind of trying to invigorate the Power Rangers line and bring it into a modern era, created these 2 new characters. And I think they're going to push these characters to the extent that they can. And I think that I'm not a huge team first appearance guy, but I think they put her on this team for a reason. I think this team is going to be important. And so I feel like while this issue may be in between 2 important issues, that's why it's valuable, because I think it's going to get completely overlooked. I think 38, you got that first appearance, people will buy the back issues. 40, you've got that first appearance. And by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. The first appearance everyone's focused on with issue 40 isn't really like the first appearance that will be the most talked about. So just be on the lookout for that. But issue 39, I think, is getting slept on. And for kind of those reasons, I don't think dealers probably heavily ordered that. That's why I said BOLO on the 125 variant. I could see that one being in short demand. So keep an eye out for that. Look, I don't know if it's still in stock, but that's another one to check the Boom Studios web store, because they always have the incentives in stock up until the point of sellout. I could see this one still being in stock, but that's why it's a long-term play for me. If issue 40 does well, then people will go back to issue 39 and want that. Again, Power Rangers is one of those series is built off a reader buzz. So you've got to think like, how do readers and collectors, true collectors, not speculators, how do they want to buy books? And I just don't think they're going to leave the prologue on the table. I don't think they're going to leave it. They're going to want to have it. They're going to want to, if they're going to buy issues 40 through whatever that storyline runs through, 50 or whatever, they're going to want or issue 39. And for those reasons, it's my long-term play of the week. I think that you may not see this shake out in the short term. This may be a 6-month play, but it's one to keep an eye out for, especially if you see these books cheap enough, or, again, if you're just trying to get bullish on Power Rangers as a property in general. Look for any of those covers with the Ranger Slayer on the cover.
Definitely. So there's Jack's long-term play. This was another book that I didn't read much about, but since the interview that we've had with Arun, this is another one that he really sold me on, and I've been going back and start slowly reading Power Rangers. I haven't read Go-Go Power Rangers yet, but I've been reading probably since started at issue 9, since that was the first appearance of Lord Draken, and been reading since then. So not caught up yet, but Arun definitely sold me on this title as well. I know this is one of the ones that Jack's been championing for a while,
yep.
But Jack being from the 80s, sometimes it might be skewed, but I definitely value his opinion since Arun backed it up. But,
yeah, and another thing to to kind of keep in mind as we were kind of talking about, just the Power Rangers in general not being on a lot of people's radars. Another thing to keep in mind is this new storyline kicks off a new writer. Ryan Parrott is taking over the series, and Ryan Parrott was previously the Go-Go Power Rangers writer. Dennis Hopeless, who a lot of people know from his Marvel stuff, is the one who was writing Power Rangers and created Lord Draken. So that's something to keep an eye on, again, for Ranger Slayer, because Ryan Parrott is the one who created Ranger Slayer. So I would expect that to become important if I had to kind of guess. But that's something. It also gives more credence to the importance of Go-Go Power Rangers as a series, which I think was looked at more of like the cartoony Angel Grove series, not quite as forward-thinking and mature as the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series. But I think there's some sneaky value in Go-Go Power Rangers. And also be on the lookout for those movie homage variants, because they're just cool. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They've got all kinds of old you talk about 80s. They all kinds of 80s, 90s movie properties. Real kind of cool ones, and sleepers. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about them.
All right. So there's a long-term play, and we do have a winner for the contest, and that was Brett Hess Art. It looked like he was the first one, and it was Hawkins Middle, or Hawkins was what we're looking for. It looks like, hold on, I just want to make sure, yeah. Scrolling through the chat. And it looks like Brett Hess squeaked by Joshua Vincent for the win. So Brett, which is fine because Joshua Vincent won already tonight. And make sure, Brett, you email me your address at simplemanscomics@gmail.com. And then I'll get that out to you because I do have it in hand as I'm trying to get it in the... But great cover. I hope you don't mind. I kind of ate some Cheetos and read it for a minute, but... we're all good with that. I'll get it out to you. So again, great stuff coming up on the channel. Make sure, guys, Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock, we premiere the Hot Cold List. That is a list that is created from contributors from the comicbookinvest.com website. We're also in works on something. If you've watched the Hot Cold List last week, there was the introduction of FOMO, the puppet from Topher, right?
Oh, yes. So, unforgettable. If you've seen the video, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. So we've been talking to Topher, and we're going to try to get him to create a little segment about the BOLO show. We don't know if it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly, how it's going to come out, but I think however he decides to do it, we're letting him have his creativity with it. I think it's going to be something to watch. Parodying us, he's going to take jabs at us for sure, but... Wednesday nights, definitely 9 o'clock. We have the Hot and Cold List, so check that out. FOMO show is coming soon. And anything else you want to talk about, Jack, before we go?
Oh, that's it. I just want to say, guys, that came out of your guys' comments. So always let us know. Brian and I work real hard to try to create. We just want to create content that you guys want. You guys let us know what you want to see. So yeah, you guys thought that was funny, and it's not usually the way Brian and I think as far as content. We're trying to get real informative, and that I think is going to be just a kind of for fun thing. But Listen, Topher's one of the best speculators in this entire game. So while you're enjoying yourself, don't think you won't pick up some spec nuggets.
Yeah, and definitely check out his True First article on comicbookinvest.com. A lot of great gems in there.
Yes.
Especially if you're a reader. A lot of people get down on him because he tells you exactly what's true first, and it's not the shiny object that people want to be picking up, but his content is valid, and it's one of those great articles that's worth reading. Stuff that you didn't know existed, where a character popped up that you would have no idea about. But with that being said, guys, please make sure you click that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already done so, click that subscribe and that bell notification, so that way you'll always be notified when a new video drops, whether it's market watch reports, whether we're cutting, if you don't want to watch the full BOLO shows, we're cutting micro content geared towards pieces that we think are more important that the audience would like to watch. So thanks for joining us tonight, and we will see you hopefully the premiere next Wednesday for Hot and Cold List, but definitely next Thursday at 9 p.m. for the BOLO show. And I should have the graphics fixed by then. So thanks for watching, and good night, guys.